Hey, Big Blue Banter listener, would you like an extra $500? That's a lot of cash. Go to bluewirepods.com/survey and complete the Blue Wire audience survey about you and your podcast listening habits for a chance to win a $500 gift card. This survey will help create a better advertising experience for audiences and, in turn, help this show. That's bluewirepods.com/survey, where all you have to do is answer some simple questions for a chance to win $500. Make sure to read the full terms and disclaimer, plus complete the survey for a chance to win. bluewirepods.com/survey. The link is also in the show notes of this episode.
Welcome back. It's the Big Blue Banter New York Giants football podcast. I'm Dan Schneier, joined as always my co-host Nick Filato. Today, we're here to do a brief preview of the Giants-Bengals game. Unfortunately, we did not get a guest. We don't know too many people in Bengals world. Thank you for
the AFC North. Do we have anybody other than Ken McCusick?
We just have Ken, I think. I don't think I have a Steelers. I would need a Steelers. I don't think I have a Steelers.
We could find a Steelers. Steelers are at least
Steelers, yeah.
I'll say this, Dan. This is something that I've realized when I'm going out trying to look for people to come on this podcast. I don't find as many people who answer us, first off, or as many people who do what we do for other teams.
Yeah, no, that's true.
Has that been the same experience for you?
Same thing. Yeah, I didn't really find any fits. And then a couple I reached out to, I just didn't get a response back from, which is okay. It's a busy time of the year. So I don't personally blame people for that.
Yeah.
It happens. But what it leaves us with is we're going to turn this into a little dual thing. We're going to do a little bit of a preview of the game, and then we're going to answer some questions, some of which have to do with the game, like an extended mailbag type of deal.
I like it.
So let's just start with this, Nick. Giants come into this game 2.5-point dogs at home, but I think realistically speaking, a lot of us feel like they may have turned the page as a team against the Seahawks. May have. I said may have. Where are you at just from that standpoint? What's your viewpoint of the season? Has it changed at all moving forward? 30,000 foot view, what your expectations are from, let's say, before 425 last Sunday to now?
It's certainly encouraging, right? It's a step in the right direction, but I think we need it a little bit more than just a step in the right direction for me to be fully bought in that the Giants are competing for the playoffs. That's within the range of outcomes, certainly. I feel so much better about this Giants team right now than I did 2 weeks ago. But I want to see it again. And I'm not devaluing the victory against the Seattle Seahawks. It's tough to go up there and play. But if you look at what happened to the Seahawks from a scheduling standpoint, brutal, dude. Brutal. I don't know if I've ever seen this. They had to play a New York Giants team who was rested after they were on a short week playing on Monday night. And now they're turning around a week after that game against the Giants where they lost, and they're playing a Thursday night football game. They got brutalized from a scheduling standpoint, the Seattle Seahawks. And the Giants took advantage, and that's great. And I think the Giants outperformed Seattle in so many different ways as we went over all this week. At the same time, dude, they were one play away from winning the game in the final 2 minutes of the fourth quarter, which is not a great look either. So I need to see it again. And this is a perfect spot against a very beatable foe in the Cincinnati Bengals. So I'm not going to fully say the Giants have turned the page, but they at least have the paper lifted a little bit.
I think that's fair. The game is interesting because the Bengals are basically playing for their season. You don't go to 1-5 in the NFL and get another chance. That's it. And this is a Joe Burrow-led Bengals team. The expectation for them going into every year and their fan base is not the playoffs. They're not to grind it to the wild card. Their expectation as a fan base is to win it all. But this Bengals team has looked nothing like the Burrow teams that made it to the conference championship or the Burrow teams that made it to the Super Bowl. And the reason is because what you said at the beginning. The defense is banged up. They didn't have the depth they needed on the defensive line, in my opinion. And it's led to really bad performance. I think they're almost dead last in EPA on the defensive side of the ball, despite having, Lou Anarumo and a lot of guys that and Trey Hendrickson and some really good talent and coaches on that staff. It's not producing right now. They're beat up on the line. And I go into this one thinking the Giants kind of need this game almost as desperately as the Bengals. Like, sure, your season's not technically over at 2-4, but how many of these opportunities are you going to get in the year? They already had one against Dallas, a turn the page kind of win. They lost that game, the Giants at home. Here comes another. And guess what it is? It's an opportunity for Daniel Jones himself, I feel like, Nick, to really change his narrative. And I'm not talking about his narrative with the fan base. Cares about that? That's so extreme and ridiculous. How about his narrative with the rest of the league? And how about his narrative with people who cover the league? Because he has lost what? He's now 1-14 in primetime games or 1-13.
It's something like that, man.
After Dallas. It's either 1-13 or 1-14. He hasn't been able to get over the hump in these primetime games. And it hasn't necessarily just been like bad luck or things happening. He's come up short in a lot of these primetime games. I know Dallas is a debate. The game is debatable among Giants fans. But look, if he makes any of those deep throws, the Giants win that game. And it's not his fault, the other things, the drops and all of those things that happen in that game. But it's still not coming up big to help your team win the game. It's still not being the difference maker like he was in Seattle, right? And then there's games like Tampa on primetime where he just, kind of lost the team the game. So there's never been that moment yet, Nick, where Daniel Jones has won the game for his team. This is that opportunity, right? Like, this is it. Not it, he'll get more, but like this is a big one for him. And it's not like the Giants can really afford to go to 2-4, in my opinion, Nick. They can do it and still kind of keep alive. It's 7 seeds now. The NFC, 7 of 16 teams make the playoffs here. You're kind of in it until you're not for a long time. But man, this would turn the page, I think, for the Giants season in a lot of ways. And I do think that there's an opportunity. And now look, we don't know about Malik Nabers. It's a little less optimistic today. It was Wednesday or Thursday when we're recording than it was.
Good.
It's pretty crazy. This is a long concussion protocol for him. Though we didn't give it enough credit, Nick, but he did say after the Dallas game, like, remember, they're like, "Are you good?" And he's like, "No," which was a weird response. Like, "Are you good?" Like, usually people will be optimistic. So it must have been a pretty heavy concussion. We'll see what happens there. But the Giants won a football game last week without him. So I still look at this matchup on paper, and I think that the Giants could win this game, Nick. I'm still optimistic.
Giants can certainly win this game. Bengals are 1-4, and their defense is atrocious. They have 6 sacks on the season right now. 6.
I saw that stat from you today. That's crazy.
Dexter Lawrence has the same amount of sacks as the entire Cincinnati Bengals team. But the crazy thing about the Bengals, too, is they're 1-4, and you look at that on paper, you're like, oh, they suck, man. They're terrible. And maybe to some degree, they do. But they have star talent on the offensive side of the football, and they've lost all 4 of their games by a collective 15 points. These are very close matchups. They've scored 30 points in the last 3 matchups. They scored 25 against the Kansas City Chiefs in week 2. Then they lost by 1 point, which is the most of any team this season against Steve Spagnuolo's defense. So This isn't as easy as I think some people think it is. And I know a lot of people look at, you got Joe Burrow, you got Jamar Chase. I think the Giants can realistically win this game, but they need to replicate a similar process that they've employed over the last couple weeks, which is ball control. The Giants have outpossessed their opponents in 3 of the last 4 games, if I'm not mistaken. So they have, it's just the Washington game where they really didn't. They even outpossessed Minnesota, but I take that one out because it was kind of a bullshit outpossession. The Giants got beat up in that game in week 1. So if the Giants can keep Joe Burrow and that offense on the sideline, they can run the football, which you can, because this is one of the worst this is 31st ranked run defense, according to EPA, according to yards against, all of those metrics. They cannot fit the run. And a lot of it is because their secondary pieces suck. They're not playing like a unit right now. Because if you look up front, Trey Hendrickson is a good edge rusher, and he's not bad against the run. Sam Hubbard, not the best pass rusher, one of the better run defenders on the other side. And then you have BJ Hill and the rookie Chris Jenkins. And then they also have Lawrence Guy Sr., I believe. So that's not a terrible interior defensive line. Look at the linebackers. Logan Wilson, one of the most underrated linebackers in the league. Jermaine Pratt, solid player. Not terrible from a personnel standpoint, but they're not playing as a unit. And then the safeties, they're veterans, and they're smart veterans. Geno Stone, I loved him when he came out of Iowa. Von Bell's been around the league forever. Geno Stone right now has like a 21% missed tackle rate.
Wow.
Yeah. And then those contained defenders, those secondary units who have to come down on those force defenders, I expect a lot of outside runs because they're not fitting the run well. They're not executing that well. And they just lost Dax Hill, who was one of their best cornerbacks for the season, and they don't have a backup plan. So the Giants, if they can't create the explosive plays, which we hope they can replicate from last week, if they can just possess the football and actually freaking punch it in and not have to rely on field goals, they can win this football game. But you have to limit the opportunities of Joe Burrow. And on the defensive side, the Giants need to get after him too. And the Giants right now lead the league in sacks, Dan. They lead the league in sacks. Who would have thought, right? We're 5 games into the season, man. It's still a small sample size, but it's a large enough sample size to get excited about it. And they should be able to protect Daniel Jones. They should be able to move on offense. They got to be efficient. They got to catch the damn football. And then when they get in the red zone, they got to punch it in and not rely on Greg Joseph's foot.
And you made a great point, because this is the 1-4 Bengals team, but it's not like the typical 1-4 team where it's like, well, we don't really know what's going wrong and just going wrong. It's not that case. It's only going wrong on one side of the ball for them. It's actually going very right for them on the other side of the ball, despite being 1-4. They're like dead last in defensive EPA and like first or second in offensive EPA. And I feel like from what I've seen, and I've watched a little bit of tape this week, plus what I've seen in the Island games, just last week there was a lot of red zone with Ravens and Bengals. That offense is moving even better than it has in past years, like where Burrow struggled a little bit last year. And I feel like they're really in tune with what they want to do. And they may be getting to a point now, which is bad for the Giants, in my opinion, where Chase Brown's going to play more than Zach Moss, because Zach Moss is a worse runner than Chase Brown, in my opinion. He's way less explosive and way less for the Giants to deal with. So I think you're probably right about this one. I don't think it's going to be a situation where the Giants can afford to, not stay on the field as an offense. They need to limit the possessions for Joe Burrow. You're right about that. Because look, it's been fun with the Giants defense, dude, and we lead league in sacks. A lot of those sacks came against two opponents. I agree with that. But overall, I think people overrate how good defensive lines are across the NFL. There's a lot of bad D lines. The Giants is one of the best defensive lines, but Joe Burrow is one of the.
Oh, sorry, but they did lose
Kayvon.
Kayvon. They did lose Kayvon too. I'll say this on that, and I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
Azeez Ojulari is a starting caliber pass rusher in the National Football League. So I don't expect there to be a dip from a pass rushing standpoint. I even think there could be an argument that he might be able to give you a little bit more as a pass rusher than Kayvon Thibodeau. It's just against the run. How did the Giants mask that? I don't think Azeez, maybe we overweight how bad Azeez is as a run defender. I don't think he's terrible at it, but it does seem like whenever the Giants have that one play that goes against them, and you look, it's like, oh, who is that? Oh, and you see 51 there, and you're like, ah, damn, just like through his history here, not necessarily in recent memory. So I just hope he can be able to really defend the run, but I'm sorry for cutting you off.
No, that's good. That's a good point. And, I'm trying to think where I was going with that, but that's like one. Okay, so let me think about where I was going. What I was going to say is, I think Burrow is such a good processor that he might negate this Giants pass rush in this game, and it might just be a situation when they're on the field, the Bengals, they're moving the football. I'm not positive of that though, because there was enough good tape from the Giants last week where they collapsed those Seattle Seahawks pass protection, those offensive lines, those pockets, I should say, with just four men, with just rushing four guys, right? And so that's still a possibility. The Giants have one great matchup in this game. The Bengals are down to their third string right tackle. That's a big matchup. I think Ojulari, if the Giants win, is going to be a big name for us to discuss this next week because of that. But I still hope that and expect that if the Giants win this game, it's going to be through keeping the ball, keeping time possession on the offense side of the ball, and scoring touchdowns. Quite frankly, like cashing in for touchdowns. Now, I want to talk about the run game because you talked about the importance of that for the Giants. Where do you see it turning to now with Devin Singletary likely to come back? And then we'll get to the passing game.
I think Singletary will still be the main guy. Tracy should earn more reps, though. But I think Singletary will still be the main guy. And you'll see, I'm wondering on third down. We saw a decent amount of Eric Gray on third down.
Yes.
I question if the Giants trust Tyrone Tracy Jr. in pass protection. I haven't seen anything on tape that suggests that he is poor in that area, but I do understand how raw he is and how that is something that is, it's unique, man. It's different. It's not Purdue right now. And you were a wide receiver for 4 years in college. You have 1 year as the running back. Can we throw you out there on Sunday Night Football on third down? I could see why the Giants would question that, but they would know better than I would. They're in the building with Tyrone Tracy Jr. But I hope we see a decent amount of him. And again, if we get down to like the 30-yard line and we're pushing the football, Giants are going to employ maybe a 21 pony personnel package with Singletary and Tyrone Tracy Jr. They're going to go on a pistol sidecar, and they're going to try to hit Tyrone Tracy Jr. deep like they did 2 weeks in a row. Only the one time they did it out of empty, but I believe it was 21 personnel. So they really want to get him going in that area of the field, and I can understand why, because all you need is a step against a linebacker, and he is more athletic than Logan Wilson and Jermaine Pratt and players like that. So I'm hoping that we get to see a little bit of that, man. Hit it on Showdown. That'd be great.
It would be nice. That's the matchup, one of the matchups we're looking for. And I think you're probably right. It will be more Singletary in this game than a lot of fans maybe expect or assume. I wonder if the Giants are going to be able to block the run as effectively as they have in 2 of 5 games, because I look at those games and it doesn't strike me on paper, at least, as like matchup-based wins for the Giants. Like both Seattle and Washington have some talent on their interior defensive line and just their defensive line in general. I think this is an opportunity for the Giants to do what they did last week in the run game. And that's going to be a big factor in this game, just from the standpoint of burning clock and keeping the defense off the field, quite frankly. Now, I will say this about the Giants in this matchup. It's going to be a little different, I think. than last week without Malik Nabers if Malik Nabers doesn't play. He's not as far along in the concussion protocol as I think we all hoped. It's Thursday, and I think we're almost taking steps backwards, according to Dan Duggan. Now, it's not over yet. I think he has one more day tomorrow to kind of like maybe
tomorrow.
Yeah, and then or else it's over. Now, do you think that could be correct? Do you think that this could be a matchup where last week it was okay, we didn't really need Nabers, but this week it's like we need that X factor?
The Giants could win without Nabers, but Nabers is going to make it so much easier. If the Giants don't have Malik Nabers, it's going to have to be another great performance by Darius Slayton, more than likely. And the only reason I say that is because I want to challenge Cincinnati deep, especially if their pass rush isn't really getting home, because I can see Lou Anarumo rolling some more middle of the field close, rolling some more either man coverage, cover 1 or cover 3, and that's going to add another person in the box. And I don't know if the Giants are going to be able to run block as well, and that could affect them possessing the football and lead to more possessions for Joe Burrow. So I want to have that threat to create explosive plays to lead to some more too high, some more quarters to lighten up the box so the Giants can actually run the football.
Is exactly what I was thinking too, which is why I feel like he is a big X factor in this game. And I think he's their best bet still to make that. Now, Slayton can play that role. He played it last week and he plays it well, but Nabers gives you a little bit of different juice. And just in general, you might see like the more of defensive attention on Nabers should open up other parts of the game. Though I still believe, part of the reason they were able to get Theo involved last week was because they were able to get the run game going early. So I'm still thinking that's kind of the basis of what they can do in this football game and if they're going to be able to. Looking at the Bengals defensively and how poor they've been, what strikes you as like maybe a matchup or an area that you'd be concerned with from the Giants standpoint? Is there?
Okay. So a matchup that I'm concerned with. So again, I think they have talented players. They're just not necessarily playing like a unit, and they have just some weak links that are exploitable. From a Giants perspective, I am attacking whoever the hell you put in for Dax Hill, who just tore his ACL. The Bengals have not went out and signed a veteran as of right now. They're not going to do it before this game and then stick him in there. So there's 2 rookies. I believe they were late round picks or an undrafted. I don't have their names in front of me. And then they just got a 7th round pick from last year who tore his ACL in December. They didn't activate him yet, but he's cleared the reserve non-football list. But he has a 21-day window. It doesn't look like right now as we're recording this, he's going to be activated, but that could maybe happen tomorrow. Either way, we're talking about a 7th round 2023. Like, they don't have depth opposite of DJ Turner, who hasn't really played all that much. Right. And then the other cornerback who it's not in front of me right now, and I'll get his name in a second, who is a solid player. So the Giants should be able to win through the air. And the run defense is right now. So they should be able to run the football. The offense should be able to control this game at home against the Cincinnati Bengals team, especially with that offense on the opposite sideline. And I have confidence that Dable will be able to construct a game plan in order to execute that. Now it's just on the players to actually execute that. And I am curious though, man, and this is something I wanted to bounce this off you.
Yeah.
We could see some curveballs and some different things from Lou Anarumo because he is on the hot seat. They want his head right now. You go and read some Cincinnati Bengals websites and some of their newspapers. They're calling for his head. They're like, oh, Robert Saleh is available. Let's bring him in. It's like, dude, it's mid-season, man. What are you just like, hey, man, just take over this defense, Robert Saleh. Just do that. It's like, that's how football works. So last week against the Ravens, they know each other very well. The Ravens and the Bengals, obviously, they play in the same division. He blitzed on over 40 plays. Like, he blitzed so much against the Ravens, just trying to dictate, trying to generate a pass rush. And they got 28 pressures on Lamar Jackson. It's a mobile quarterback. You're going to get a little bit more pressures because Lamar does this thing. I'm wondering if they try to do something similar to Daniel Jones with the spotlight on Sunday Night Football. And how does Daniel Jones react to that? Because when it wasn't Sunday Night Football, I'm not saying that's the only factor. When it wasn't Sunday Night Football, when Seattle tried to dial up some blitzes and some pressure, Daniel Jones had answers. He's had answers ever since that Minnesota game. But that Minnesota game wasn't that long ago. And we saw what happened. So I'm wondering if Lou Anarumo sees what Brian Flores is doing and see if he can incorporate something different, try to replicate that, or try to throw some curveballs at the Giants to get them out of rhythm early, to give their offense extra possessions early. Possibly that offense ends up taking advantage of Shane Bowen, getting points on the board. And next thing you know, the Giants are down and they're in scramble mode and they're one-dimensional. And then that's not a place we want to be.
No, you're right about that. And that'll be interesting. I would be curious to see if the Bengals will be able to employ something like that or something similar with what's going on there. But I think you brought up a great point. Really, is except for Brian Flores, no one's really been able to get the Giants uncomfortable on the offensive side of the ball. Like, they're running what they want to run right now, the Giants, and I don't really feel like it's changed that much. Like, somebody talked to me today and I had a conversation about the Giants, and they were like, oh, well, wasn't it was it maybe a good thing to not have Nabers on the field because the Giants spread the ball around more? I'm like, did they spread the ball around more, or did they just kind of use Slayton in the Nabers role? And then, Theo Johnson got some catches finally, but I don't really think that was a factor because of that. So I still think the offense is running very similar. We have Wan'Dale Robinson third in the NFL in targets, which is insane. So many first read targets for Slayton, for Nabers, then it would be Slayton, and then for Wan'Dale. Hopefully you can get the screen game going, all of those things, but I don't think they're going to be able to knock him off his game right now. I think that's what has me excited about the Giants offense right now. The offensive line is playing good enough together, and they've been healthy together all year long, which is kind of the number one factor, I think, there. And I think Daboll's going to be able to run what he wants against this defense. I'm not all that worried that Lou Anarumo is going to be able to figure this out in a week, and mostly because Daboll's been doing a really good job. And this is his team now, right? Like, he didn't call it last year and the year before. So he's got his opportunity to put his game plan in every week. I guess most of my concern, Nick, lays in two factors. One, that I think the Giants need to win this game, need big explosive plays in the passing game, and I want Nabers on the field for that, though Slayton has proven he can. And then two, it's every time Joe Burrow touches the ball. So on the other side of the ball, from what you've seen from the Bengals offense, what do you think we're going to get game plan wise from Shane Bowen in this one?
Game plan wise from Shane Bowen, I say you could try sending some pressures, maybe give pressure looks and then back out, drop 7, just send 4. That's something that entices me personally. Try to throw Joe Burrow's calculations off in the pocket from pre to post snap. You don't have to do anything super exotic, but just test the water, see how he's reacting to those looks, bring pressure sometimes, back off others, simulate pressure, send 4, drop 7, drop 8 sometimes, what Shane Bowen likes to do on certain third downs with Elijah Chapman, who, not going to lie, looked good dropping back. Better than any defensive lineman I think I've ever seen drop back like that.
It's crazy. He's
So I don't think you got to get super creative. And this is where it gets really tough, man. I'm deathly afraid of T. Higgins. Jamar Chase is going to get his. Jamar Chase is one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. He's going to win his matchups against Deontay Banks. Deontay Banks will probably win a couple plays here or there. Cordell Flott looked solid last game. T. Higgins is better than a lot of number 1 wide receivers in the NFL. He could be a number 1 wide receiver on a lot of teams, and he is their number 2. So I am a little threatened by T. Higgins, and I think their game plan is going to feature him pretty heavily. They might even watch the tape, though. Banks had this game against DK Metcalf. Like, DK Metcalf's a great receiver. He's not Jamar Chase. And they might be like, right, we can win that matchup. And they might test that early and often, too, in prime time. So I'm a little scared of the passing attack. Rushing attack, I would rather see Zach Moss. Now, the one thing I will say is that if it is Chase Brown, that could be a liability in pass protection. Chase Brown hasn't fully proven that he is this pass. I think that's one reason why we see a lot more Zach Moss, because it's clear as day, if you watch the Cincinnati Bengals, that Chase Brown is one of the most explosive running backs in the National Football League.
He's super explosive. It's crazy.
He hits the hole and he's just gone, and he's low to the ground, and he takes a pop on contact, dude. Like, when he hits you, like, you feel it. I've always been a fan of Chase Brown's game, so I'm a little bit scared of him as well. But this is where I think the defense is going to actually be tested, right? Seattle has a really good offense. Again, I don't know how much stock you want to put into all the circumstances we talked about at the top of the show. I think that must be factored in, but it's not everything. The Giants won. You got to give them their credit. The Cleveland game's the other dominating performance. Deshaun Watson's the worst starting quarterback in the NFL right now. Like, there really is no other way to frame that. So now against Joe Burrow, can you do this? And if they do, it's like, we've arrived, I think, at that point. I know it's weird to say because they're 1-4, but again, I think they are one of the best 1-4 teams.
Definitely.
On offense, they certainly are. Defense, they had their issues, but on offense, if Shane Bowen can stifle Joe Burrow in this offense, I'd be very interested.
What's up, everybody? It's Jerry Ferrara. I've got a new podcast called Throwbacks with Heisman Trophy winner Matt Leinart, where we will be talking about all things sports, all things pop culture, and all things about our lives. From football locker rooms to Hollywood green rooms, we've got you covered. We're your weekly destination for the games you want to hear about and the stories you won't forget. Listen to Throwbacks on Apple Podcasts or Spotify with new episodes every Thursday.
What's up, big Blue Banter listeners? I love a great deal as much as the next guy, but I'm not going to crawl through a bed of hot coals just to save a few bucks. It has to be easy. No hoops, no BS. So when Mint Mobile said it was easy to get wireless for $15 a month with the purchase of a 3-month plan, I called them on it. Turns out It really is that easy to get wireless for $15 a month. And all of Mint Mobile's plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. You can use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number along with all of your existing contacts. To get this new customer offer and your new 3-month premium wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/BBB. That's mintmobile.com/BBB. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/BBB. $45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details. Hey everyone, this episode is brought to you by Manscaped, the global leader in men's lifestyle and grooming. Every man knows the unbeatable feeling of a fresh barbershop shave. Now, what if I told you that you no longer have to wait weeks or even months between appointments to experience it? Introducing Manscaped's newest innovation, the Chairman Pro Electric Foil Shaver, the game-changing tool that brings the luxury of a professional shave right into your home. Whether you're after that daily silky smooth finish or prefer to maintain a rugged 5 o'clock shadow, the Chairman Pro Electric Foil Shaver is your go-to for precision and style every time. Head over to manscaped.com and join the over 11 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped by using code BIGBLUE for 20% off plus free shipping. Get the shave you desire. Be silky smooth and get the Chairman Pro today and experience a shave that is as smooth as you deserve. Get 20% off plus free shipping with the code BIGBLUE at manscaped.com. That's 20% off plus free shipping with the code BIGBLUE at manscaped.com. Hey, Big Blue Banter community. Tired of the same old team gear? It's time to elevate your collection and tap into the passion of game day at buckfalston.com. This isn't your average apparel. It's a statement. We're talking unapologetic designs that showcase our team spirit and poke fun at our rivals. Whether you're at the stadium, your game day bar, or with in-laws from Massachusetts, Buck Falston's apparel is comfortable all day, every day, and guaranteed to spark conversations. And here's the best part. Use promo code BLUE20 at buckfalston.com for 20% off your first order. That's BLUE20 for 20% off. Why blend in when you can stand out? Because in sports, half the fun is giving your opponent a hard time. Grab Buck Falston's apparel at buckfalston.com and wear rivalry with pride. Remember, promo code is BLUE20 for 20% off.
If you could beat a healthy Joe Burrow in primetime with all of his weapons, that's a big win. That no matter what's going on with their season, it's still a healthy Joe Burrow. You know is going to come up big. You know is going to process defenses, throw with a wild amount of anticipation, ball placement on point the entire game. This is one of the better quarterbacks in the entire NFL. And I even saw Andre Yoshevich, who's a guy who we liked a lot coming out of Princeton, like as a sleeper, is like up there in average separation score. So that's the matchup I'm keying on, to be honest, because the other two we know about. Giants have actually been pretty good against slots this year, and I'm pretty excited about that because that's something that's killed them in past years, just killed them. It used to kill them. And so I hope this is not that game where we're like, oh, crap, now we have this problem to worry about, and he chews us up all game. The blitzing stuff's interesting, and just to be clear, like when Nick and I discussed blitzing, we're not saying like pressure or something or like there's pressure on the quarterback. We mean like if a coordinator sends more than 4 pass rushers. And that was a really good sign for Daniel Jones, probably one of the best signs of last week, that he's struggled a lot in the past under the blitz. Last week, he beat the blitz with his mind and with his ball placement and with his everything, the mechanics, understanding where to go with the ball. I'm curious if the Bengals look at that film and they're like, this is now who he is, or if they're like, this is prime time, we want to get to him. Let's blitz, because it's going to be a big test for him to see if he can beat it again.
And Dable does such a good job putting Daniel Jones in a successful position because if you watch certain play calls, right? This is the play side of the play. There are 2 wide receivers to this side. He'll have a route that's called for zone based on the pre-snap look, and then another route called for man coverage. And a lot of the routes that were called for man coverage were thrown to Theo Johnson. It was a lot of just like Theo Johnson's attached to the line of scrimmage. Wan'Dale Robinson is basically right next to him. He runs a 5-yard button hook. Theo Johnson releases underneath him. Daniel Jones catches the snap. He looks, he sees the safety flying down to get to Theo Johnson, realizes it's man coverage, fire the football, pick up 5-6 yards. Simple plays like that Brian Daboll provide Daniel Jones allows him to just trust his eyes and then make a quick decision in quick game and attack the defense based on the coverage that they're running. So I'm imagining if the Bengals want to replicate their game plan from the Baltimore Ravens game, where they're just bringing a lot of pressure, Daboll's going to have answers for that are beyond just the screen, which we're going to see as well. That's the tight end screen. That's the running back screen. I wouldn't be shocked if we start to see some Wan'Dale Robinson screens, some slot screens. Also, Wan'Dale using the orbit motion is something that the Giants have run a lot recently, and they do it frequently to add him as a fast 3 or a fast 4 to a 2x2 side or a 2 receiver side or a 3 receiver side. So that could be incorporated where you have throws that are behind the line of scrimmage and you're forcing these secondary pieces who have struggled with their tackling all season to make an open field tackle or avoid a block and then make a tackle on a player as shifty as Wan'Dale Robinson. And that's another way to get the football out of Daniel Jones's hands very quick, get it to your playmaker and just have him create yards after the catch, something Wan'Dale Robinson has done a great job doing this season. So that could also be incorporated, and it's very, very low risk too, because you're not airing it out over the field, which I also think the Giants can successfully do against the secondary, especially.
Well, that's the thing, because like I saw the breakdown you did. It was an excellent breakdown. For those who don't know, Nick writes for Big Blue View. I'm sure most of you know that by now, but did an excellent breakdown of Jalen Hyatt last week when he got his extended opportunity. And I think Hyatt could hit a big play in this game if Nabers is out for sure against the secondary in prime time. I'm hoping that's the case for his sake, just to give him a little confidence boost. Like people like, it's like, look, it's the NFL, dude. You like, everybody's so crazy about this Hyatt situation, Nick, but it's like we have wide receiver depth for the first time in forever. And he simply put is not better right now than Darius Slayton. And Wan'Dale Robinson plays a very unique role. You can't just take Wan'Dale Robinson off field. Now, I am hoping as the season goes on, there will be some times where it's Slayton, Hyatt, and then Nabers in the slot. Because I think Nabers in the slot is a big advantage for the Giants that they haven't used that much of this year. He's mostly been isolated on the outside, sometimes in the slot, but not enough. So that's something to look forward to. But this is how you build that confidence if you're Jalen Hyatt. You have a game like this in prime time. So I'm looking at him. And the blitz is really interesting. I was going to say this point earlier, like, in theory, Nick, I don't want to be the team that's blitzing Joe Burrow because I think he'll come up with solutions. But I think back to like the worst games of Joe Burrow's career. They're always against the same team. They were always against the same team. They were against Jim Schwartz's Browns. And what does Jim Schwartz do? He blitzes the F out of you. And so like, I'm wondering if maybe, you know, we can take a look at that game film and steal some things from, because every time he plays the Browns, it's like they can't even move the ball, the Bengals.
And who is a Jim Schwartz disciple?
Well, there we go. We got him right here.
Bowen. Yep. Yeah. Now, Myles Garrett is a big reason for that as well. Some of the defensive personnel that they have that I wish the Giants had all throughout their defense. But I will say, man, I am very, very encouraged by the young secondary pieces that the Giants have. Banks, Nubin, Pinnock, Belton in his role, and Andrew Phillips specifically. And Flott had a good game, and you still need to see a little bit more. The Giants have a good defense from a personnel standpoint, and they're all gelling together. This will be that first. I would say the Seahawks were a real test as well, but this will be that first, I think, like just prime time. Like, you know, you're starting to get a buzz. Can you maintain that? You're an underdog, though, at home still. Like, let's buck that trend. Let's actually win when the lights are at their brightest. Let's live up to the potential of this team. It sucks that Kayvon Thibodeau isn't going to be there, but Azeez Ojulari is a quality starting pass rusher, like I said earlier. So I don't think that's a huge drop off in that department.
I think we might get some pass rushes where we're happy to have him on the field. If we can get, again, it's really just feels to me like from a defense size ball, can we just get them into third and longs again? Because I have so much confidence in the Giants once we get into third and long. But like, how do we get into them opposing team in third and long? To me is the big factor.
Who's going to block Dexter Lawrence?
That's a question for every game, I think. I mean, I go back and watch the tape throughout the week, Nick, and then I post some clips throughout the week as it comes up. You just see something new. The more you watch the Giants defense and you go from that end zone angle on the film, the more you see just Dexter Lawrence is the impact he makes. It's undescribable. I think to me, he's by far and away the most important player and most valuable player on this Giants team overall. From a film standpoint, I personally don't think it's even close. Like it's him and then tier drops.
It's insane. Now, both of the offensive tackles, Amarius Mims, who was a rookie drafted in the first round out of Georgia,
out, right?
No, I believe he's playing.
Okay.
He stood in for whoever got hurt. Kind of
Trent Brown originally, but then it was somebody else.
Orlando Brown is their left
tackle. Orlando Brown. No, but didn't they have Trent too? Did they have, or was that the Chiefs who had Trent? Trent's been bouncing around.
Trent has been bouncing around.
I thought he was starting right tackle to start the year. I might be wrong.
Trent Brown was their starting right tackle. Okay. Yeah, I know he's been bouncing around, but then they have Orlando Brown. So my point is though, Mims is a freak athlete. He only started like 12 games in college, so he's really raw. They drafted him in the first round. You can understand the upside, but still his big knock coming out of college was that he was raw and it might need time to develop. Well, now he's thrusted in the starting lineup because Trent Brown is out. You have Orlando Brown and Amarius Mims. Those guys are gigantic. What does Brian Burns do very well from a wide angle? He is able to stress the top of the arc.
Yeah.
The spin too, but he's able to dip underneath punches, especially against a guy like Orlando Brown Jr., who is a good offensive tackle because he uses his length very well. But not everybody is as bendy and as flexible and can get as low as Azeez Ojulari and Brian Burns. Both of those guys. Like, we know that. Kayvon Thibodeau is not the same pass rusher as those two. He can't bend like those two. So hopefully the Giants will be able to soften those angles up the arc and crash into the pocket with Dexter Lawrence just taking Ted Karras or Cordell Volson or Alex Kappa, who I loved coming out of college and used to be with Tampa Bay, back for a ride, because Dex is going to win those matchups with ease. The two pass rushers we're going to have on the edge could win high side against these two on certain occasions, and it could be a long night for Joe Burrow if the Giants can force them into 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8 in situations like that.
Yep.
Yes.
And the key is what we've seen lately, which is Shane Bowen's run defense shore up, so we can take away some of those early Chase Brown runs, and we'll see what happens there. All right, Nick, let's get into some predictions, and we're going to answer some added additional mailbag questions. So I'll let you take the floor first. What's your prediction for this game? And don't I sense a deep sigh there. I'm not loving that deep sigh.
No, I don't love this deep sigh either. I want to see another week of the Giants playing the way they played against Seattle, with the lights the brightest. I don't like playing into the narratives that, the Bengals are desperate. It's like, dude, everyone wants to win an NFL game all the time. I think the Bengals are going to come up with a very creative plan for Daniel Jones in this offense. I think Dable is creative enough to combat that, but can the Giants execute to the level that we hope that they can? Can they execute to their potential? I think without having Malik Nabers, that significantly hurts the upside of the offense. And I'm going to go with the Bengals squeaking out a victory here, 27-24.
Okay, so pretty high scoring.
I hate
51 points.
Sorry, guys.
No, you got to predict what you think is going to happen. That's what we do on the show. I'll preface it by saying I'm 0 for 4 on my predictions this season, which is insane. I've never been that low.
I'm 1 for 3. I'm right there with you.
Yeah, it's very weird Giants season. It's been very hard to figure this team out. I think they're going to win this game. I have a good feeling about this game. I'm going 30-28 Giants. It's a high scoring game. Again, I made that prediction earlier this week when I assumed Nabers would be in. With Nabers out, I'm a little less confident in the prediction. But I just think overall, what you said is going to be the key factor. Brian Dable is going to be able to out-scheme this team and this defense with where they're at. I'm not saying Lou Anarumo is not going to spend the week figuring out stuff that's interesting to confuse Daniel Jones or to try to take him away or take some of the stuff he's been doing right away. I just think Dable is going to be aware for that, prepared for that, and he's going to be able to beat a defense that looks the way this defense has looked on tape. And so the Giants, I think, offensively are going to be great, and I think we're going to get enough of those situations where we can get a big play on Burrow on a 3rd and long to win this game. It's
either that close loss for the Giants or the Giants kick the shit out of them. Like, this could be like a bottoming out. We're going to fire Zach Taylor. We're going to fire like Lou Anarumo gets fired on Monday type of game. I can easily see that, Pat. It really just depends on if the Giants are real and the Bengals are as down bad as it seems like they are. Can the Bengals bounce back? Because there is so much negative energy surrounding the Bengals defense. You got Mike Hilton coming out saying like, yeah, we're struggling right now. So I can easily see how I'll have egg on my face on Monday. Completely fine with that. That's 100%. That's 100% cool with me. It really just depends on the resilience of them, and can the Giants rise to the occasion when the lights get turned up a little bit more. And I think the Giants will rise to the occasion, but I think the Bengals offense will carry them to a slight victory.
And if I get this one wrong, I might just start predicting a Giants loss every week, so I could be we can get more wins in because be 0 for 5 at that point. All right, let's wrap up with some questions here from people who have sent them in. Thank you. We'll start with Rashad Mayan, who says, perhaps it's moot given the draft investment, but who would give the Giants more of an advantage on offense right now? Jalen Hyatt or Isaiah Hodgins? Hodgins' route running, run blocking, and red zone abilities would seem to make him the clear choice to me. Or is the threat of Hyatt's speed more valuable?
So I think the threat of Hyatt, I think they're both very valuable. You're not going to put Jalen Hyatt through the process of Isaiah Hodgins because Jalen Hyatt was a Biletnikoff winner. If you try to slip him onto your practice squad, he's gone. So from that standpoint, you're not going to do it. Now, just to get to the meat and potatoes of your question, who's more valuable? Darius Slayton can play Jalen Hyatt's role. Jalen Hyatt is a little bit more explosive, maybe, but it's really not too big of a difference. I do love what Isaiah Hodgins offers as a blocker. I think Hyatt blocks his ass off, just doesn't have the same frame, just doesn't have the same body type to position himself well and eliminate an edge rusher like Isaiah Hodgins can on these crack tosses. But Hyatt also, and this is where it gets interesting, drew 2 key penalties, one on a 3rd and 5 that ended up being a scoring drive for the New York Giants that extended to a scoring drive. There was another one that should have been called on the Seahawks tape where he got basically dragged, his arms flailing. He was selling it a little bit, but it was a hold. So that speed and that threat and how he clears out certain routes along with Darius Slayton, because the Giants run a ton of, hey, we're going to clear out the field side and we're going to run a boundary receiver right into the field side. Daniel Jones throw it. There's a lot of routes like that. So you know what? I'm going to actually turn it around and say Hyatt. But either way, the Giants will never risk putting, unless they're just completely done with Hyatt and there's something to log them, they're never going to be like, hey, Hyatt, you're going to the practice squad, because another team will be in there in a second to scoop him up. Hodgins isn't that type of dude.
Without a doubt on that last point. I think the latter point you made, Nick, is the reason. I just think in general, overall, the speed is the factor there in what it can do for you schematically. Okay, Larry Edelstein asks, is Dexter really a nose tackle, or is he just a regular I don't get this one. Is he really a nose tackle, or is he a regular star gold jacket nose tackle? Maybe that was a Gettleman joke that went over my head. It says he seems like he lines up as a 2 technique or 3 technique just as often as anything else.
Yeah, it's just a system. We saw a nose tackle in Wink Martindale's system. He was always at the nose, almost always. He was at the 2-eye sometimes. But with Bowen, if it's 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7 plus, he's going to put the two eyes, or sometimes even he does 4 eyes. And then those other guys are like by the sideline, like rushing, like he loves those wide fronts. Yep. So in those situations, you're not going to even have a nose tackle. So what's it going to do? That center needs to like pick one place to go. And then he's like fanning out this way. And then you have the one-on-one matchup to the other side. And the Giants have enough talented personnel to where they can scheme up those one-on-one matchups. Now, without Kayvon, it's not as great, but you still, like I said earlier, Aziz is a good pass rusher. But behind Aziz, it starts to look pretty thin.
And he also asks, Nova or Locks?
Nova or Locks?
What do you like more?
I don't even know what that means.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's something isn't it something like Jewish food thing?
Yeah.
So, no, I don't know anything about any of that.
I got bad news for you, Larry. I am a bad Jew in this regard. I don't like lox, and I don't like this type of Jewish breakfast food on my bagels. I don't know. Maybe it's the smokiness. I don't think it's a consistency issue. I've never liked it. I don't like it. I don't want it. So I don't eat any of it. So to me, it's neither for sure. Okay, George asks,
what's Nova, by the way? What is that?
This is another bad Jewish thing I didn't want to be put to the test to have to answer. I don't even know what Nova is. I know what locks are, but the only locks I like, by the way, are Jadakiss, Styles P, and Sheik Luch. That's the locks that I like. All right. George asks, in your opinions, how would DJ and the team need to perform the rest of the season to make a reasonable argument for keeping DJ as the starter next year?
Go to the playoffs. He's going to be the starter next year. It gets tricky with the contract. You're not going to talk him out of it if he leads you to the playoffs. You're just going to have to eat it at that point. But the Giants are going to get walked right back into a similar 2021 or 2022, decision. And that's probably where they're going to be. I'll say this right now. I've seen DJ specifically over the last 2 weeks, and I really want to focus on last week. He was making far hash throws. He tempted some against Dallas, and it was wildly unsuccessful, as we saw. And it was really bad look on DJ to the point where we were questioning him and putting on our doctor's hats, even though we were saying we're not doctors, but we were like, dude, something has to be wrong. Last week, he made several far hash throws. Now, some of them weren't outside the numbers, but he was ripping them, and he was using every inch of the freaking field. And if he can continue doing that with moderate consistency, that's that for me. And he's also comfortable in the system, and we start to see kind of what we saw through the last 4 weeks just build on and develop, and its development is linear and it's going up. Yeah, I think the Giants aren't going to have another option at that point. So you will roll with Daniel Jones. What about you?
I think you're right. I don't think they really have developed any kind of plan behind Daniel Jones. Drew Lock is not a long-term plan. Tommy DeVito is not a long-term plan, in my opinion, at least. I would hate personally. I'm done with DeVito as the starter of this team. I'm happy for him. Good kid. Glad they're letting him be a part of this team. That's not an arm I want on the field at any point starting for the Giants from this point on, to be completely frank about the situation. So they don't really have any option behind him. So it's not like they can just turn around after the season and be like, we see what we see on tape, but we trust Abel's system. We like what we got, and we can get something else similar for cheaper. That's the argument, right? Like Daniel Jones is going to take up 15, 20% of the cap, whatever it is next year. Can you get somebody cheaper for 6% of the cap or 7 or 8% of the cap, spend that money to prove your needs elsewhere and get similar production? I want to think that's possible, and it might be, but it's so hard for them to get to that point with somebody new who doesn't know the system. Part of, I think, why the Giants have found so much success this year is that Daniel Jones is in year 3 of this system at this point. If we go to a guy who's in year 1 of the system, I think we're going to see a lot less of these solutions found post-snap in this quick game. I mean, look, Nick, the Giants are still, I saw this stat the other day, they're still 28th in the NFL, Daniel Jones is, in throws beyond the sticks. So they're still not throwing beyond the sticks. They're making this work with all short passes, mostly, an occasional deep shot. So like that requires being on time. That requires having solutions, understanding the systems, all these checks I see him making pre-snap, all the advanced stuff we're starting to see from him. That would we get that if we just signed somebody like a Tyrod type in free agency, or would he have to start from scratch?
Yeah, I mean, a Tyrod type, a veteran like that, I would feel more comfortable. But like a younger quarterback, it would be a process. And that's, again, another just reason why Wan'Dale Robinson is so freaking important to this offense.
Right.
Because he is one of the ideal type of receivers where you just get him the football, he's going to find his way to the first down, or at least close to it.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Similar question, but we'll read it. And I appreciate everybody sending it in. This is from the Couch GM. If DJ continues to hit deep shots, gets to his second and third reads like he did against Seattle, and continues to see the field side better, in your minds, what would prevent him from being the starter next year? Or how about this? He has a second part of this question. What would you want him to be the starter next year?
Yeah, it all comes down to the options. And if he actually takes those steps of development and starts living at least close to the contract that the Giants gave him, I'm not going to be like, hey, let's just get rid of him and we have no options. Tommy DeVito, it's you. If the Giants go to the playoffs and win a playoff game, then you kind of got to ride at that point for all the reasons Dan just articulated. It's like you have to learn this new system. Now with Tommy, it wouldn't be, but Tommy's a step down from Daniel. I think we can all admit. So yeah, I mean, I think if he sustains success and proves to develop, then he might earn another shot here. Ideally, I want somebody with more upside. I'm always going to want someone with more upside than Daniel Jones. But if he at least starts to crawl up to that upside a little bit more, that's a step in the right direction.
I think that's totally fair. Look, Nick and I set a very high bar at quarterback. We won't, we admit that wholeheartedly. And that's just how it's always going to be for this show. As long as you guys listen to us, we're looking for mega talents at this position at some point for the Giants' future. I don't think either of us really feel like Daniel Jones is that long-term, but if he does the things that you mentioned in that tweet, if he does those things more consistently, he can get himself to a level that's just below that, which is very good. At that point, I'm in. Right. That's the Dak. That's the Cousins level. That's the level of you can move a ball with your arm and with your mind and get the ball to all three, every blade of grass. That's the same sustainable success.
Yes.
It's still not quite what wins championships, which just shows how crazy the NFL is and how quarterback driven it is, that you can even get to a different level. That's obvious on tape when you watch those guys consistently, but he needs to get to that level.
Let's put it into context. 2 weeks ago against the Dallas Cowboys, Daniel Jones looked horrific passing the ball deep. And then last week, he looked like an NFL quarterback. And
it's weird.
We're starting. Well, no, but we're just starting. That's what an NFL quarterback should look like. And as Giant fans, we just haven't seen that. So we're like, oh, he's it. We got to let it happen a few more times. I think it's fair for us to say that. It doesn't make you a hater or anything weird like that. We got to see more consistency in that department from our starting quarterback for us to rally around him and be like, this is the guy we're going to move forward with. And I think that's just completely fair for any Giant fan to ask for, because we just haven't really seen that. Like that type of arm talent, that type of rips from the far hash, out numbers, explosive plays, all these things. I need to see that a lot from here through the rest of the season for me to really just be invested in the decision to move forward with this quarterback personally for the long term.
I completely agree with that. Again, it's not about narratives, but he does need to change, not narrative. Again, that's not the word I'm looking for, but he needs to change the consistency level of what he's put on tape. It can't just be one game here, one game there. And people have said, well, he's been consistent all year through after the first week. And I'll tell you, no, he hasn't. He's been good. And he's been pretty good in some of those weeks, but it wasn't the level we saw last week against the Seahawks. That's a very different level. And that's kind of the baseline Nick and I need to get to. We don't need every game to look like that, but we need 10, 11, 12 of the 16, 17 games, 10, 11, 12, 13 of the games to honestly look like that. Because even that was not, guys, we know that wasn't like the greatest of greats. It was great. He had an amazing game. I'm not taking anything away from him. I want to make that clear. And that was some of the best tape I think I've ever seen from him. But still, we need to see consistency. I think, guys, that's fair. I mean, it's been 6 years and there's been moments of greatness. And I've said this before. It's like, you understand why we're still here with Daniel Jones in year 6, because his flashes like last week are brilliant. And that's what it is. Like a lot of these quarterbacks who don't make it 6 years never have the flashes, but 3 different regimes have chased those brief flashes. And to this point, they've been brief. That's the bottom line. If you could turn that word from brief flashes to consistent flashes, that's when, or then flashes wouldn't even be the right word, but consistency, that's when it becomes a story of like, yes, I'll be confident. To answer your second question of would you guys want him as the starter for next year? And either way, like they may have no option anyway. So it might be a similar type situation. All right. Cautiously Optimistic asks, this is for Nick. During the summer podcast, you mentioned doing the Scouting Academy. What was that experience like, and would you recommend it to others?
Yeah, I absolutely love the Scouting Academy. Dan Hatman does a great job. He was a scout for the Jets, the Eagles, and the New York Giants when they won the Super Bowl. And Dan's a great guy. Look, I did the Scouting Academy back in 2015. I was one of the first classes. I ended up going down to the Reese's Senior Bowl, networked with a bunch of people, met a lot of individuals who ended up leading me down the path to where I am now covering the football professionally. I didn't go the scouting route. I thought about going the scouting route. It's a very tough route to break into, but I learned a lot about the evaluation process from Dan because he inculcates that into your brain on how to actually watch film, what you're looking for from a traits-based perspective. And it really just kind of goes into competitive toughness, play strength, play speed, all these different things that you never really thought too much about and how to actually look for those traits on tape. Dan does a fantastic job, him and his staff. I was a teaching assistant there for about 1.5 years, 2 years, and I helped out Dan. So I couldn't recommend it more for people who are just either trying to break into the media industry or the scouting industry or the coaching industry, or you're just, trying to learn about the game. It just depends on like your income level. I don't really know how much it costs right now. So that all needs to be factored in, but I absolutely loved it and learned a lot.
I love that. All right. We have time for one more from the real Ricky Pio, and I apologize to those we didn't get to. He says, considering the opponent, the Bengals, the top ranked offense, bottom ranked defense by EPA, primetime stage, is it fair to be disappointed if we don't see the Giants top 30 points in a potential fun shootout game? Maybe not fair, but to expect it. But like, he says, I feel like this is a game we should see it finally happen.
I'm hoping that it happens. Now, if the Giants win with like 24 points, I'm not going to be disappointed. Yeah. So it really depends on the game flow.
Yeah, it is a game flow dependent. If the Giants just milk the clock and keep Burrow off the field and don't need 30 points, I'll be happy. But
Devin Singletary falls down at the 1 yard line. You know what I mean? Like stuff like that can happen where it's they didn't score 30 points. It's like, all right, but like, come on, really.
Right. But we want to see this Giants team score 30 points. It's happened so rarely in not our lifetime, but in our recent lifetime that it'd be nice to see them score 30. And I feel like I will be a little disappointed if they don't put up, and I'm not going to use points as the barometer, but I'll be a little disappointed if they don't put up a great offensive showing in this game, Nabers or not. This is a really bad defense. Dable's locked in. The offensive line is fully healthy, looking good. Daniel Jones is playing the best football that I've personally ever seen, in my opinion, at least on tape, in his entire career. So to be quite frank, I will be a little bit disappointed with that. Let's wrap up like one more bonus one that I saw just scrolling through that I think was fun. And I'm curious. I'm going to ask you the same question with your favorite band, Nick, but I have to find this question first because somehow it has now seemingly escaped me. And now that I filibustered, I'll say S. Jones asked, Dan, choose, and I'll say, Nick, you can choose first. You can either go back in time travel and see the Grateful Dead live in their prime, any concert you want, or see one of the Giants Super Bowl wins live. Which do you choose, and which show or Super Bowl would you pick? So I have a definitive answer here, Nick.
Yeah, same here. Yeah, okay. I would go to Super Bowl 42. Easy. Watching something like that, absolutely, I would go see Super Bowl 42.
So for me, it's still an obvious answer, but it's not about like seeing the Grateful Dead live, like seeing, oh my God, look, there's Jerry. To me, it's just the live sound.
God. Sorry.
Yeah.
That's me.
To me, it's just like the live sound is so much better. Like I love live shows because I love watching I like watching musicians play their instruments. It's like, to me, it's like watching an athlete on a sporting field, especially like, I mean, I've seen like some recent ones like Dead & Co at Citi Field, like John Mayer playing I was really close. We had the GA seats, John Mayer playing guitar. It's like watching a Malik Nabers type play the wide receiver position. That's what it's like to see somebody who's that skilled and talented. So I feel the same would be for Jerry. Jerry's obviously better than John Mayer. Jerry may be the best of all time. When it comes to that, though, I would still say it's Dwayne Allman, but that's just my personal
opinion. Jimmy, bro.
And Jimmy, there's obviously like people will say Jimmy, and Dwayne is a deep cut. I mean, it's just my kind of guitar, like slide guitar. I just love the sound of slide guitar. But it would still be the Giants. Like I am a much bigger Giants fan than Grateful Dead fan or any music.
Yeah.
And this is my life. It's been my life forever since I was the youngest kid. I cried at like 9 years old when they missed a field goal against Washington to like not like to eliminate them mathematically from a wild card spot. That's how ridiculous it was. It might have been younger, but like I don't remember that game fully. But so for me, which Super Bowl would be? It would be 42. It would be Eli. I mean, how could it not be that game?
I'm getting goosebumps talking about it.
Yeah, it's crazy to imagine myself there. And I was in Phoenix, by the way, so you could have been.
Yeah,
there.
I know. I could have been there, right? I was in Phoenix. I was living in Phoenix when they did the last Super Bowl.
Right.
There. Yeah, that was festive to say the least.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. All right. That's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. I forgot to ask, please hit the like and subscribe video. You guys did a great job liking the offensive film review. Not as great a job on the defensive film review. This is my progress report for you guys. I'm going to start grading how well you like our videos and support our page. But thank you so much. We'll talk to you soon. Hopefully again after a Giants win. And just a small note, the post-game review pod. Maybe we'll talk if we're going to do it live or not. It's going to be so late. It might not be worth it, but it will be late. The post-game review. I'll tell you why. I'm going to the game this weekend. So again, I think I mentioned this earlier, but if anyone wants to meet up, I'll be around the D parking lot. That's where I'm tailgating. So D4, I believe, or D3. And because of that, I'm driving home. So who knows what time I get back. It all kind of depends on the game. But
I mean, it's going to be like super late because I'm going to be there in the press box.
Oh, you're going too. Nice. Okay.
Yeah. Cool. Might not be live because it might be like 2 a.m. type.
Yes, right. Yeah. So just
maybe we'll go live to just see what other degenerates are awake. But
maybe, yeah, why not? There's nothing against it, and you'll get the key is for those of you who listen to it during your morning commutes, it will be live by that point. It's just a matter of for those who like listening live, joining us on YouTube, you'd either have to be up late or that'll kind of be the only thing there. All right, thanks so much. Have a great weekend. We'll talk to you soon.